We're recording and we're looking at assignment 6. Now, I got to tell you guys, this is the most, when I was going through school, a graduate school, this is the most confusing part of it to me. Actually, that's not what I want to show you. That's actually the first two questions of the quiz. So you got to see that real quick. That's all right. Anyway, because you really you have to keep in mind where you're coming from. And because if you're in the U.S. and the U.S. is trading with Germany, then goods flowing into the U.S. to Germany are exports, and to the U.S. are imports. So whether things are imports or exports, or whether there's a capital inflow or a capital outflow, depends on where you are. So that's very important not to get confused about. So the first problem right here is telling us that we have a zero current account balance, which when you read the book, they talk about a balance of trade, right? And it's also, once again, I've said this over and over, that the Khan Academy videos are very helpful to understand this idea of the current account balances. Okay, so in this case, the inflation rate in the U.S. is going to decrease relative to the inflation rate in South Korea. So based on the decrease in the inflation rate in the U.S., will U.S. exports to South Korea increase or decrease? Okay, so if prices are going up in the U.S., and this is domestic prices, right? So if things are starting to cost more in the U.S., then the U.S. is going to want to buy more stuff from somewhere else. Okay, which means they're going to want to buy, so that they're going to. So they're going to. Let me make sure I said that right. Inflation rate U.S. Decreases. Okay, so I'm sorry, decreases. So you don't get mixed up on which direction we're going in. Okay, so if prices are going down in the U.S., then their goods are going to be more attractive to the rest of the world. So our exports to South Korea will increase. Right. So if we look at that, I think I got a chart here. So let me scoot you guys out of the way. So this is a graph that I took off a sheet that I'm going to send to you guys. This is from a really useful handout that has all the graphs that you need to know for macroeconomics. So I'm going to send this to you real soon. The reason I haven't sent it to you yet is because there's a lot on here that you haven't even covered yet, and so it would be confusing. But pretty soon you guys are going to be ready to get that. But this one, if we look at, well, actually, let's keep going, and I'll come back to this graph. Let's just keep going here. Let me shut this off so you don't just keep seeing that. Yeah. All right. So what will happen to the real gross domestic product? Well, if you think about the function, if we say that we're going to export more to South Korea, and part of the aggregate demand function, if I have it here somewhere, is net exports. And what are net exports? Exports minus imports. So if exports go up, it means this whole expression, net exports, go up, which means if this part of the function goes up, then that's going to shift aggregate demand to the right, which is going to also increase our GDP. So the answer there would be that it would increase. So now this is part of this. Now you're learning about this part in the chapter you're doing now. I think it's chapter 11. I'm not sure, or 9 or something. Anyway, the chapter you're doing now. This is later on, but it's part of the question because when they do the AP exam questions, they have it from the whole course. So this is a bit jumping ahead, but we need to learn this anyway. So we're going to just go over it. So if the South Korean currency is the won, we want to draw a correctly labeled graph of the foreign exchange market for the US dollar. Show the effect of the lower inflation rate in the US on the won price per dollar. So what does that look like? All right, well, it looks like this. So when it says in your graph, it's in your problem, it says it wants you to draw it, the market for the dollar. So if the market is not for the won, it's the market for the dollar. So that tells you want to put the dollars, the quantity dollars are on the horizontal axis, and on the vertical axis is going to be wons per dollar. Okay, I'm trying to get you guys out of the way here. So wons per dollar here. Okay, so what's going to happen is the demand for dollars is going to shift to the right. Okay, let me make sure. Let me go back here. Okay, so the lower inflation rate. Let me make sure is going to shift. Make sure I'm doing this right. Is going to cause is going to cause our goods to be demanded, and in order for South Korea. Now this is really a key here. In order for South Korea to buy U.S. goods, theoretically, they first have to exchange wons for dollars. They have to buy dollars first. So if they're buying our goods, then their demand for dollars are going to go up. So that's why we say that the demand for dollars in the foreign currency market shifts to the right, which means that our currency is going to be more expensive. In other words, it's going to cost more wons to buy a dollar, because the won here is in the numerator in this graph. So whatever is on the whatever the quantity is, whatever currency is on the horizontal graph and is in the quantity, is going to be in the denominator on the vertical axis. So we can say that the US dollar, because it's being demanded more in the foreign currency market, the US dollar is going to gain in value relative to the won, or we can also say the US dollar is going to appreciate relative, in this case, to the won. Okay? Everybody follow all that? So the answer is going to be that, well, you would draw the graph that looks like this right here, and you would say that the dollar is going to appreciate relative to the South Korean won, okay? Because of the exports, because they're buying our goods, because our goods are cheaper, because our inflation is lower, okay? And that's pretty much that one. That's all there is. Yeah. So what you could say here, you know, this would be a correct answer if you say that the won price per dollar goes up, or you could say that the U.S. dollar relative to the won gains in value, or the U.S. dollar appreciates relative to the won. Okay, those would all be correct answers. Okay, and this is the actual one. Yep. Oh, and I didn't answer this. The current U.S. account balance would be in surplus. Yeah, I didn't answer that. Let's see. Yeah, it would be in a surplus because we're selling things more to South Korea. So if you start at a zero balance and your exports increase, your trade balance goes into surplus. If you start at a zero balance and your imports increase, then your trade balance goes into a deficit. Okay, that's how that works. Now, before I forget it, I don't know how carefully you guys are reading your book. I hope you're reading it very, very carefully, because if you read carefully on page, what page is this? On page 193, there is a mistake, okay? Right up here, where it's saying that when you have a trade surplus, this expression right here should be surplus. X minus M equals S plus T minus G. And your book says a surplus is G minus T. Okay. Oh, one of these is wrong. Hold on. Let me figure out which one it is. One of these is wrong. Yeah, surplus is wrong. Because I did the algebra last year, as a matter of fact, and I kept getting this right here. And the book says surplus right here. Let's go back again. It says G minus C. So circle this in your book. Mark this. Page 193, where it has the expression. Let me go back here and just check one more time. Yeah, page 193. The expression for a trade surplus should be T minus G. Because I figured this out last year algebraically. Right here, I just worked through the whole thing and just did simple algebra and ended up with this. And I was like, wait a minute, that can't be right. And then I found a website that's correct, which is correct with what I got, right? T minus G, and the website says T minus G for surplus. And the book, once again, says G minus T. So that's confusing. I mean, if you really, work this out and you read this, you would be confused by that, okay? So, and then the deficit should be, I think that's correct, MXIST minus G. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So this, I got to be honest, guys, this is confusing, okay? This is going to take some study to figure out what's going on here. And this website, I could actually send you guys this website, but it's really the same thing that's in your book, except this is correct, and your book has the one, a mistake right there. But this is good. This, if you read through this and watch the Khan Academy videos, you'll be able to understand it. But don't get frustrated because it's a little bit confusing. Can be anyway. Okay, so problem two. Problem two is review. So this won't be hard at all. It's the first asking you to draw a correctly labeled short run Phillips curve. So that's simple. You just need to draw, and you don't really have to put the long run in here at all. I put the long run Phillips curve in here to finish the answer, but the requirement for the actual question is just that you have the inflation rate on the vertical axis and the unemployment rate on the horizontal axis, and then the short run of Phillips curve is just a downward sloping curve. Okay, that's really all you have to have. But this helps you answer the rest of the question. So I just put that in there. So now it's asking us, using your graph in part A, show the effect of an increase in the expected rate of inflation. Okay, well, if we think that price levels are going to go up, that just simply shifts the Phillips curve to the right, so that at every level of unemployment, the inflation rate is going to be higher, okay? So when we expect a higher, when we expect the inflation rate to increase, we see a shift to the right of the short run of Phillips curve. And anytime, guys, you don't fully understand why this happens, ask me, and I will try to explain why it happens. You know, this is just, but why it happens is this is a relationship between the unemployment rate and the price levels, right? So if price levels go up, we have to redefine the relationship between the two variables by shifting the curve to the right, okay? That's the best way I can explain it. Okay, where are we here? Okay, now, okay, what is the effect of the increase in the expected inflation rate on the long run Phillips curve? Well, that's why I drew it in here. Nothing, right? Price levels, just like the long run aggregate supply curve back over here. I think I've got it over here somewhere. Somewhere I've got it. Hold on. If we look at the, just flash through here real quick. Nope, not there. If we look at the long run aggregate supply curve, which is here somewhere, right here, right? Price levels have no effect on the potential output right here. It doesn't change at all, right? It's perfectly inelastic. Okay, the same is true for the long run. The long run Phillips curve defines the natural rate of unemployment, and theoretically, price levels are eventually going to adjust with wage levels, so that we always come back in the long run to the natural rate of unemployment. So it's not going to affect the inflation rate is not going to have any effect on where the natural rate of what the natural rate of unemployment is. It's going to stay the same. So this curve, this vertical, perfectly inelastic long run Phillips curve doesn't change at all. Okay, so no change. Okay, given the increase in the expected rate of inflation in Part B, will the nominal interest rate on new loans increase, decrease, or remain unchanged? Okay, now this means we need to look at the effect of the increase in the expected rate of inflation on the nominal interest rate. And that's simply by looking at this formula right here, or this relationship. The real interest rate is going to be the nominal interest rate minus the inflation rate. So if the expected interest rate or wait a minute, I think that's supposed to be inflation rate. Let me jump back over here. I think I put something wrong. Yeah. So this should be, sorry about that, guys. This should be inflation, not interest. Wow. Okay. So if the expected inflation rate increases right here, then the nominal rate will increase to keep the real interest rate unchanged. So if the expected interest rate went up to 4, right, then the nominal interest rate, we would have to jump up to 9 in order to keep 5% real interest rate. So if inflation goes up, nominal interest rates are going to go up. That's the relationship right there. And that's also review. Okay. Now, so once again, now it's just using a number. So if we assume that the nominal interest rate is 8%, of borrowers and lenders expect the rate of inflation to be 3%, and the growth rate. Now this is the real interest rate. Okay, right here. The growth rate of real GDP is 4%. So we use that as the we use this as the real interest rate. Let me make sure I'm saying that right. No, sorry, man. No, just cancel that. What am I saying? This is in here to distract you. Sorry about that. Be careful. This sentence, this part here is just a distractor. My brain's not here. This, because I got distracted. This doesn't matter, okay? What we want, the variables that matter are the nominal interest rate, which is 8%, and the rate of inflation, which is a 3%. And then we can calculate the real interest rate, which I already had. I had it right here. This was 8, and this was 3. And so our real interest rate is going to be 5. So that is a good lesson. Sometimes with these free response questions, they'll throw in a distractor like that, just to see if you know that you don't need this. This isn't part of what you need, because this could get you all discombobulated. If you start trying to figure out how to factor in a 4% real GDP growth, it's just a distractor, okay? And I got distracted by that. Sorry about that. Okay, moving on. Problem 3. Yeah. Okay, so now we have a situation where the U.S. is exporting $10 million worth of goods to Argentina, and the currency is the peso. How will this transaction above affect Argentina's aggregate demand? Okay, explain that, right? So we're selling them goods, okay? And see what I put here. Okay, so once again, this is important. This is what I was saying. This is where you can get confused. You're not talking about the U.S. You're talking about Argentina. And if we're selling goods to Argentina, yes, we are exporting to them, but from the perspective of Argentina, they're importing. So Argentina's imports are going to increase, which means since net exports is exports minus imports, if the negative part of this gets larger, then the whole expression net exports is going to decrease, which means that their aggregate demand is going to shift to the left. Okay? And I've got that here also, right? So the answer is because their imports are going to increase, their net exports are going to decrease, so their aggregate demand will decrease, okay? It's just good to draw this out, kind of write it out, because you can get really confused if you're not careful. Okay, so now we're going to assume that the U.S. current account balance with Argentina is 0. How will the transaction above affect the U.S. current account balance? Well, we're going to be selling $10 million worth of goods to Argentina. So we're going to get $10 million from them, which means our account balance is going to go up, okay? It will increase. Okay, so, and I did all this out here. So we'll be in a trade surplus because are because if our exports go up more than our imports, and here the X stands for exports and the M stands for imports. So if you get to the bottom, if we're in a trade surplus, it means that exports are greater than imports. So when exports go up or when exports increase, the trade surplus increases, so the current account will increase. Okay, and you don't have to worry about all this. And here I just showed you how you actually algebraically get from this to this, because the book just does it from here to here, but I actually worked it through because I don't felt like doing that just to prove what it is. And that's how I actually found the mistake, by the way, in the book, by actually doing the algebra. So sometimes that helps. Okay, so where are we? So the current account balance is going to go up because, why because of this, because when our exports increase, that causes our current account to increase. Okay, that's how you would explain that. Okay, now we have to draw this foreign exchange market graph again, and it's saying using a correctly labeled graph of the foreign exchange market for the US dollar. So that's going to be what you put on the horizontal axis, quantity dollars. Show how a decrease in the US financial, a decrease in financial investment in Argentina affects each of the following: the supply of US dollars and the value of the US dollar relative to the peso. So we're going to have a decrease in investment. So now the supply here, we're talking about, now think about this, the supply of dollars into the foreign market, So that would mean that the supply shifts to the left because we're investing less. See, the problem says that our investment where is it? Decreased, okay? So if we're going to decrease our investment, it means we're supplying less dollars into the foreign market to buy pesos, okay? Which means the supply of dollars into the market is going to decrease, which means that the supply curve in this graph that you're going to be drawing shifts to the left, which means that the dollar, and this is just dollars to, let me make sure I'm saying that. No, this is pesos to dollars, okay? You can't really see it here because they're both, the dollar sign is used the same, so I should probably put pesos here. I just put something like that. It's not confusing because it's just like the one for the yuan over here. See, whatever you put here is going to be in the denominator. I mean, yeah, in the denominator up here. Okay, so this is pesos to dollars, which means what we're saying here. Whoops, went too far. What we're saying here, or didn't I go too far? Where am I? Sorry, guys. Got to find where I am here. There we go. Okay, which means that it cost more pesos to buy a dollar. So in real life, when I check this online, $1 costs 37.72 Argentine pesos. So if this were to actually happen, this 37.72 would go up to say 40 something, right? So that it takes more pesos to buy a dollar, okay? Which means the dollar gets more valuable relative to the peso, which means the dollar appreciates relative to the peso. Okay, so that's kind of like that whole answer. Okay, let me move you guys back over here so I can see. So the answer would be if. Okay, I already said that. Yeah. Oh, no, I haven't. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Now, this is the same question as you had in problem 2, right? Or 1, I mean. Suppose the inflation rate, well, anyway, let me just back up. So the supply of U.S. dollars into the foreign market would decrease, the supply curve would shift to the left, and the value of the dollar relative to the peso would increase, okay? Yeah, I'm making sure I'm not thinking backwards here. All right. Now, suppose that the inflation rate is 3%, so it's lower in the U.S. relative to Argentina. What will happen to the value of the peso relative to the United States dollar as a result of the difference in the inflation rates? Well, if our goods are cheaper, that means that our goods are going to be demanded more, right? Which means the demand for the dollar in the foreign markets is going to increase, which means we have a shift of the demand curve for our dollars to the right, okay? So the answer would be if Argentina has a higher inflation than the U.S., our goods will be relatively cheaper, so our exports to Argentina will increase the demand. And in order for them to buy our goods, once again, they first have to buy dollars and then buy our goods with dollars, right? So the demand for the dollar on the foreign market shifts to the right, or the demand is going to increase, which makes, if we're going from here to here, right, up to here, it's going to make the dollar even more valuable relative to the peso, or the dollar is going to appreciate even more, okay? I think that's all they want you to answer. Let me make sure. Well, they actually ask you about the peso, right? So you would say that the peso of the peso, back up here, what will happen to the value? Okay, so it's just the opposite. If the dollar appreciates, then the peso depreciates. So what they're actually asking you to write in for your answer is that relative to the dollar, the value of the peso is going to go down, because if it costs more pesos up here, if it costs more pesos in the numerator to buy a dollar, it means that relative to a dollar, a peso has depreciated. Okay, so like if it costs 50 pesos to buy a dollar, it means the peso relative to the dollar has depreciated. Okay, because it costs more of them to buy the same amount of dollars. Whew. Does that make sense? Yes, everybody get that? Are we good? Okay. I take silence as a yes. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's everything, right? Yeah. So that takes care of assignment 6. So let me jump back over here and find you guys wherever you went, right here. And stop the video.